Hakadosh Baruch Hu Masechet Yevamot Daf Nun Chet Amud Aleph 58a1. We were talking about now, according to Shitat Rabbi Meir, the Amar Kiddushin Pasle, which means the Kiddushin of a Kohen to a woman which is pasul to him is going to disqualify her from eating teruma. So therefore, according to Shitat Rabbi Meir, Kiddushin Pasle, Chupa Nami Pasle. So therefore, not only is Kiddushin going to be poselota from eating from teruma, also the Chupa is also going to disqualify her from eating teruma. And according to Shitat Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon Damni, Kiddushin lo pasle. But according to Shitat Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon that says that Kiddushin are not going to be posel, Chupa nami lo pasle. So too Chupa is not going to be posel. Remember, there's two steps of marriage. There's Kiddushin and Chupa. Even though there's a whole question, why do we call it Chupa v'Kiddushin? But it's the exact opposite. First you do Kiddushin, and then you do, right, the Chupa, right? Which one? Yeah, by the way, because they say the Chupa al yidei Kiddushin that preceded it. That's the explanation in the Beracha. Al yidei Chupa v'Kiddushin shekadma mashaya. So first you do Kiddushin, which is Harei HaMekubel Sheli V'Ktabat Zo, that's a Kiddushin, and then afterwards is the Chupa when you bring her into the Chupa. That is called the Chupa. So says the Gemara. Okay, umimai. How do we know? Right, this the dilma adkan lo kama Rabbi Meir hata. Maybe until here Rabbi Meir only said it over there. Ela bekiddushin, only by kiddushin. The kanila, that through the kiddushin he acquires her to become his. B'chupa de lo kanala. If somebody did chupa without kiddushin, he does not acquire her, because chupa in itself is not a kinyan. Meaning, if you want to make it a form of acquisition, it is only through kiddushin. And then there's chupa afterwards, but you already did acquisition at the time of the kiddushin. When you say areat mekudesheli, it becomes to you, designated to you. Now you acquired her as a wife, but through chupa by itself, it's not. People think that concepts of acquisitions are a joke. It's not a joke. If you right now you come to court and you say, right, I bought this property, they come and say, okay, fine. How did you acquire it? No, I went and I jumped up and down 10 times in front of the guy and he saw me. You think it's going to work? If there's no handshake or if there's no rules of acquisition, nothing happens. Right? It's as if nothing happened. Right? And that's why it's so important. Right? That's why it's so important, because the same halachot apply to everything. For example, somebody told me, Rabbi, I don't want to do tevilat kelim. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go give it to a goy, and then I'm going to tell him to lend it to me. There's such a concept. This usually they do it on Shabbat. On Shabbat, if a person cannot do tevilat kelim, and now they can't do tevilat kelim because it's mitaken, they're fixing something when they put it. So what do? You give it to a goy as a present, and then he takes it back and you lend it from him. And now you're allowed to use it without tevilat kelim, because it doesn't belong to you, it belongs to the goy. Now, many times I come and I tell them, okay, fine, how are you going to give it to the goy? Oh, what's the problem, Rabbi? I just give it to him. I said, no. Do you know that a goy, there's machloket, how does a goy acquire? Why do you think by Mechidat Chametz of Pesach, by Mechidat Chametz of Pesach, every single form of acquisition in the books is used? Why? Because it's a machloket. How do they acquire? So now, again, just like everyone was laughing before, because I said jumping up and down, and then they understood, but for sure not. If there's no handshake, if there's no giving over of a key, if there's no document, it's nothing. The exact same thing, whether it's going to be with Mechidat Chametz, whether it's going to be with acquiring something, to giving to that way you could use it without tevilah. All these halachot, it's important. So therefore, the same thing. To do with a woman, even a woman, right? You want her right now, you're going to come and acquire her. If you do kiddushin, you acquire her. Chupa without kiddushin, you do not acquire her. Okay? So now he comes and he says, what? So he comes and he says like this. He says, right, as follows. Mimai dilma kalo kamar b'mina tamizol kiddushin b'zi acquired her. Chupa, he didn't acquire her. Inami, or another form. Akan lo kamar Rabbi Elazar v'Shimon hatam. Until now, we're talking about Rabbi Elazar v'Shimon over there. Ela b'kiddushin de la kriva lebiyah. Remember that kiddushin, there's no relations yet. Kiddushin is the first step of marriage. The kiddushin of once upon a time is like the engagement of nowadays. Even though the engagement nowadays is nothing. Wallo. Right? If somebody comes and they commit adultery during the engagement of nowadays, nothing happens. In the olden days, if she would commit adultery, gamarnu. You understand? She gets killed, right? And even a much stricter punishment than regular chenek. You understand? Regular death penalty. She gets the strictest of all punishments because she's engaged to get married. So the engagements are different nowadays than what it was. But says the Gemara, maybe Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon over there, we're only talking about kiddushin. That what? That it's not karov lebiyah, and it's not close to marital relations, and therefore she's not going to be mechalelet. Aval chuppah dekriva lebiyah, but chuppah is close to biyah. Chuppah is right. What's the next step right after chuppah? Right? What do you do right after the chuppah?
Yeah,
right? The biyah, cheder yichud, or if we don't do the cheder yichud, it's like Sfaradim, but still, right afterwards, one second, let me finish my statement, please. Yeah, first you have the cheder yichud, and even if you're not going to do the cheder yichud because Ashkenazim do it right away and Sfaradim don't, but at nighttime, immediately afterwards, immediately right after the chuppah, what do? The biyah, which means the chuppah is for the biyah. The next step of chuppah is the biyah. So hachenami de pasta. So maybe Matt, you're going to be posel. So answers the Gemara. But you're right. We want to come and we want to say that it's a machloket in this tanaim. What is this tanaim? The Tanyas we learned in a Braita. Nisu zo lezo. If right now, right, he says over here, ksherot upsulot, which means you have nashim ksherot lekiuna or psulot lekiuna, or shenichnesu lechupa. So it doesn't matter whether right now they came into the chuppah and they didn't have the relations. That means it doesn't matter whether she was a woman which is kasher tikuna or whether it's a woman which is not kasher tikuna. The second that she got married through the chuppah, im nisu zo vezo, or nichnesu lechuppah velo nivala. So it means even though there's no relations, what does it say? She could eat, right? Also in truma, and also mishelo. She eats from his properties. Because remember, erusin, she does not eat from his properties because it's only engagement. She's still in her father's. She's still in her father's house, and therefore she's eating from the father. But once it's nisuin, now it's from the husband. So nichnesu miklal de nisu. Right. So one second. When we just said nichnesu lechuppah. And we said one line beforehand, nisu zo vezo. Remember, zo vezo is the nashim psulot and nashim kshirot. That's why it's zo and zo, not ze vezo. Right? Okay? Yes. Now he says over here, the nisu mamash. We say one second. If nichnesu is lechupa velo nivalu, so it's mashva, the nisu is nisu mamash, which means also nivalu. Elalav, but rather we want to say, nichnesu lechupa velo nivalu. Really, we're talking about bemet nichnesu lechupa, and they didn't have relations. And still, that means this is v'katani, ochlo b'shelo v'ochlo b'tumah. So you see from here that even the fact that a woman got married, even without biyah, even without marital relations, but the second there was a true marriage, right? And here we're talking about also, it was a suralo, because we said zo v'zo. What is zo v'zo? Whether it's kasher to him or whether it's pasul to him. What do we say over here? We say at the end of the day, right? It does not prohibit her for truma. And the question is, you told me in the beginning that it does prohibit her to truma. Here we're saying it does not prohibit her to truma. So the first shita is saying, this is what it's saying, it's machloket. So Rabbi Shmuel ben Osher Rabbi Yochanan ben Roka, Rabbi Shmuel ben Roka says, Kol shebiyata ma'achilata, chupata ma'achilata. Echol she'en biyata ma'achilata, en chupata ma'achilata. Rabbi Shmuel, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Roka, he comes and he gives a general rule. What's the general rule? The general rule is, if the biyah to the Kohen is going to cause her to eat the truma, so also the chuppah is going to cause her to eat the truma, even though there was no biyah. And kol she'en biyata ma'achilata, but if the biyah is not going to give her to eat truma, because let's say she's psula, so therefore the chuppah is also not going to make her eat in truma, even though there was no biyah. Okay? Until here we're clear. So basically it's coming out, there's a machloket. It's not I have no idea. It doesn't say the halakha. Yeah? Which means that there's no, right? There's no way of knowing, because at the end of the day, there's two different shitot. Okay? Says the Gemara, Mimai. How do you know, right? That from here we wanted to learn, according to Shtat Rabbi Shmuel, that chuppah helps for even the psulot. He says, Dilma Rabbi Shmuel maybe he was like Rabbi Meir. The Amar that he says, Kiddushin lo achla. that he says from Shat Kiddushin, she's not going to eat Truma because Mishtameret leBiyah Psula, which means she's waiting for Biyah Psula. What is Biyah Psula? Biyah Psula means she is Psula to get married to the Kohen. She's permitted to get married to the Kohen, whether she's an Almanah to Kohen Gadol, right? This is what John Jack mentioned yesterday in Rashi, or whether she's a Grusha Chalutza to a Kohen Idiot, right? It doesn't matter. In any case, it's going to become prohibited to her. So says the Gemara, Hai kol shem biyata machilata yuchubata machilata, kol shem biyata machilata, and kaspa machilata mibaele. So 1 second. If you're going to tell me that this is a shita of Rabbi Yochanan ben Roka, which is basically going to be that everything's talui b'biyah, it's not true. Because if he holds like Rabbi Meir, it was already talked about from the time of the Kiddushin. Kiddushin, there's no biyah. Kiddushin is what? Kesef. Remember, how do you do Kiddushin? Bekesef, right? Or bishtar, right? But it's bekesef usually. So therefore, it's not biyah, right? Biyah is also a kinyan, but here we don't. Ma? No, ketubah is for nisuin, not for kiddushin. Harei mekudesh li, b'ketabat zo kedat shmi said. No, the chuppah will also say. Nowadays we do both together because we do both. We do chuppah v'kiddushin biyachad. We do together. So for the first part of the no, because once upon a time they used to have a year in between, right? 1 year. They used to do kiddushin, right? Kiddushin, right? They used to do kiddushin, wait a full year, and after the full year, then they used to do chuppah. So one more time, what was the kiddushin? The kiddushin was zarei mekudesh li b'tvat zu kedat, which says they used to put on the ring. That was kiddushin. Or they could do it through shtar, even though the minhag was not to do with shtar anymore. Shtar was a document. Whatever it is, give it the shtar. Okay, you have to have two edim always. Nowadays, what we do is we do everything together. So you do the kiddushin, which is you do the kiddushin, and after the kiddushin, what do? You come and you do the nisuin. So what is the nisuin? The sheva brachot, which is after the kiddushin. And in order to make a hefsek, that's the nisuin. The nisuin, which is basically underneath the chuppah. No, it was always the sheva brachot underneath the chuppah. That was always no, not b'tziruf, not together, but it was always there, right? One after another. Yes, 100%. Not after the simcha, under the chuppah. Remember, we just said Shitat Yochanan ben Roka. We just said that kol shem biyata machilata and chupata machilata. It's not chupata, it's kaspa. Because if we're talking about kiddushin, kiddushin is kesef. It's not anything more than kesef. So says the Gemara, Dilma Aidi Amar Tanakama chupa iunami. Right? He comes and he says, since we're already talking about chuppah, so to here we're also talking about chuppah, even though the kavanah was the kesef as well. Amar Rav Amram, says Rav Amram. Yeah, he comes and he says like this. He comes and he says like this. Amar Rav Amram, says Rav Amram. Yeah, Hamilta Amarlan Rav Sheshat. Yeah, this is what Rav Sheshat told us. And he brought us a proof from the Mishnah. Yesh chuppah lepsulot. There is a chuppah for the psulot, which means if a person gets married to somebody that's pasul to him, let's say a Kohen gets married to somebody that's pasul to him, there is a chuppah to that. The Tanatuna, and even our Mishnah that taught us also in Sota also, and he said also that's the concept of saying Amen by the Shavuot Sota, which means Shelo satiti arusa unesua shomeret yavam knusa, which means like this. The Mishnah over there in Mishnah and Sota comes in his Doresh. Why does it say Amen, Amen? Right? V'amira isha Amen, Amen. Why does it say twice? Right? Over there by the Sota. So there it says, right? Okay, so we know what a Sota is, obviously, the Kinui Shtira, that she's suspected from her husband of infidelity. And therefore, right, she comes and she has to say Amen, Amen. Now the question is, why does she say Amen, Amen? So the Gemara there, it says, that we were talking about, she has to make a shavua, she has to swear, Shelo satiti arusa v'nesua, shomeret yavam uknusa liyavam, which means she has to make a vow that she didn't cheat, not only now when she's married 100%, even when she was engaged, right? The arusa, she also has to swear for that. That's why it's a double, right? For example, Shomeret Yavam, right? Ve'knusal Yavam. Whether it's going to be for Shomeret Yavam, she was waiting for the Yavam, or whether she was already married to the Yavam. So that means in all cases, she's swearing. It's like a double vow. It's a vow. It's a twofold vow. Not just right now. Because if not, she can, yeah, I swear. I wasn't with anybody else. Yeah, but when? Only when you're 100% married? No. Even when you are engaged, you have to swear. Meaning that's why she's saying that amen. Okay? So obviously, schooling depends. Hay arusa hechidami. So he says, this arusa, what are we talking about exactly? If you're going to tell me that he did the kinui, which means that the husband came and he did the kinui ustira keshiarusa, the kamashkela keshiarusa, and he's giving her to drink. Arusa b'mishtayai. Does an arusa actually drink? But Tnan it says arusa v'shomenet yavam lo shoto v'lo noto ketubah. You know that an arusa or shomenet yavam, they don't drink and they don't take a ketubah, right? Which means that it actually comes out because it says tachat ishech, tachat isha. It's under her husband. It's 100% ishut. So therefore, it comes out that if somebody does kinui and then there's stira to his arusa, it's only divorce, right? Kinui is that he comes and he says he's mekanela. So he comes and he says, I don't want you to go with this man. That's called kinui. Stira means that she actually does seclude herself. She does yichud with this man. So if he does kinui in stira to his wife when she's an arusa, Kaddish. He's what? No, because remember, kinui stira is we suspect her, but not that she actually went with someone else. We suspect her. She was in a room with somebody else. Doesn't mean that they did something. Doesn't mean that they need a bed there, right? So what happens though? What happens now is that in a normal case, when he suspects of his wife, he takes her to the Bet HaMikdash, she drinks the sota water, and now it all depends. If she comes out clean, she's clean. She doesn't come out clean, Kaddish on her. What are you going to say? Yeah, however though, here, she's an anusa. If he did the kinui stira for an anusa, she doesn't drink the waters of the sota. If she doesn't drink the waters of the sota, he gets divorced, but he doesn't have to pay the ketubah. So he saved the money of the ketubah. Yeah, he saves the money of the ketubah. Now it says, not only is it to do with the arusa, shomeret yavam is the exact same thing. If a shomeret yavam was also done kinui stira, and she was waiting to get married to the yavam, and he does kinui stira, the same thing. He cannot get married to her because he cannot give her to drink. So therefore, obviously, it would probably be only chalutza.
If he committed also.
No, if he committed it, so then it doesn't test her. That's something different. Because if he commits adultery,
there's no effect on her.
Exactly, it doesn't test her. That's why I said it doesn't test her. It doesn't test her. Okay. Ela dekanila keshihi arusa v'istatra vekamashkela keshihi nesua. So maybe be'emet, what are we talking about? We're talking about really be'emet, right? That he did the kinui when she was an arusa. And after being an arusa and doing the kinui, she was nistira, right? And he was mashkela only when she's already married. So says the Gemara, mibad kelamaya? Does the waters actually test her? Tanya, we learned in a bright of Nika ish me'avon. Izman she'ish menuke me'avon, hamayim botkim et isha. En ha'ish menuke me'avon, en hamayim botkim et isha. Which means that only if the man is 100% clean, so it's going, well, that's what we're saying. If the man is 100% clean, so then it's going to test his wife. If he's not going to be 100% clean, right? So therefore, right, it's not going to, not only if he's not going to be 100% clean, if he lived with her afterwards. And that's why I usually will put people to be with him, meaning like this. Let's say right now, a person comes and he suspects his wife of foul play. Yeah? Foul play.
Wow.
Foul.
She did get up with somebody else. Next.
Yeah, she did something bad, right? That's called foul, right? Foul play. So he infidelity, right? Fine. Okay, so now what happens is like this. There's another word for it. Something marital relations outside. I forgot how you said it. Right? So what happens is like this. Right now, right? He does kinui, and then there's stira. So he comes and he tells her, I never want you to be with this man. Why? Because he starts suspecting there's something going on there. So he tells her, don't be with this man. Fine. She's alone with this man. What happens afterwards? If she's alone with this man, he has to take her to the Bet HaMikdash. How do they go to the Bet HaMikdash? So usually they have to travel with someone. Why do they have to travel with someone? Because what's going to happen is that they don't go together. Why? Because if she convinces him, you know what, let's at least one more time, right? Come and do this. What happens? It's over. What does that mean it's over? It doesn't test her. The entire process is completely disqualified. So she's going to come. She's going to say, she's going to enjoy her drink. Nothing's going to happen to her. Why? Because her husband had relations with her. So therefore, it's going to happen that she wants this to happen. She wants that he should have relations with her in order that the waters won't actually test her. In a sense. So because of that, that's what it says over here. So now 1 second. Are you telling me that he did the kinui and the stira when she was in a rusa, and then it was nisuin? 1 second. If there was nisuin, that means they had relations. If they had relations, what does it help afterwards that he's going to come and he's going to give her to drink? It doesn't help to give her to drink. Ela de kanila keshiya rusa v'istatra v'nichnesa lechupa v'lo nibala u'shma mina yesh chupa lepsulot. So says the Gemara. No, maybe be'emet it was the kinui was done when she was in a rusa. Then she was nistatra when she was still in a rusa. Then she got married to her husband, but they still didn't have relations. Now he wants to come and take her to drink the waters. So comes to teach you, yesh chupa lepsulot, which means the chupa to a woman which is prohibited to him, right, was already going to be there. So therefore, what happens is that she's already considered married from the time that she went into the chuppah, even though there was no bia. So Amar Rava comes and he says, "V'tisbera tehamitarstahi." He says, "What? Do you really think that this is a good answer? Do you really think that V'ha kiata Rabbi Yacha bar Chanina midaroma? When Rabbi Yacha bar Chanina came from Daroma, from the south, he brought a matlitin, right? He brought a brighter in his hands. Baladei Shech. What does it mean Baladei Shech? What does that mean? It means over here, right, that it has to be, when it says it means that it has to be that the husband was the first person that had relations with her. It cannot be that the Boel had relations to her before the husband had relations with her. So here, if you're going to tell me that she already had the relations with the Boel, because again, everything was done during Irusin, and the husband never actually had relations with her, and only now he gets married to her. So that's not the case of Sotah. Because when it says over there, in Baladei Shech, it says in the Pasuk, Vayiten ish bach et shechofto, that you gave a man the shchiva, right, in you, in Baladei Shech, other than your husband. So therefore, they're making a drasha that it has to be that the husband is the first one that has relations with her. Now you have the Boel, and now you again have the husband, or that the husband didn't have it, but that's the only case where you could have a sotah. If the first one was a boel, meaning the boel, he was trigger happy, he was the one that beat the gun, right? He had the relations with the guy's wife before the husband, there's no sotah. There's no sotah. So says the Gemara, Amr says, Mashkach Allah, Kegon Sheba Lea Rusa Bevet Avia. He says, no. You know what happened? They were engaged. Now remember, the engagement was not like nowadays engagement. The engagement was a real engagement. Somebody lives with her other than her husband, it's mamash sekila. We're talking about mamash, they get a death penalty. It's not a joke, right? What happened? They were together. Yeah, Bavonotenu Arabim. They lived together before the marriage, right? Now again, we're talking about Arusato. Yeah? So therefore, since he had relations with her beforehand, and now he does the kinui stira for the buel, for the other guy, so now it does help the sotah. Why? Because at the end of the day, the husband preceded the boel. The husband came first. The husband was the one that had relations with her first. So therefore it does work. Just like it happens by Shomenet Yivam. So what happens right now if the Yavam had relations with her in the father-in-law's house, when she was still in Almanah, he had relations with her betor znut, not betor yibum. He went and he had relations with her betor znut. Okay? Nunchet amubet, Noach, amubet. Shomenet Yavam karile. Are you telling me that she's still a Shomenet Yavam? It's 100% his wife. Why? The Amar Rav, as Rav said before, we already learned this. Kana lakol. You acquire her for everything. Which means if you remember, even if it was going to be L'shem Znut, even if it was going to be honest, ratzon, this, that, you remember, what do we learn? We learned that you 100% acquire her. So says the Gemara, Shmuel, like Shmuel. The Amar Shmuel says, Lo kanai ladvarim emunim parasha. If you remember, it was a machloked Rav and Shmuel. Shmuel says that how do you acquire her? You only acquire for the things which are written in the parasha. What was written in the parasha? The Yibum and what's written in the parasha? Devarim. No. What Numa? מה כתוב בפרשה? No. Shemuel, מחלוקת רב and Shmuel. When you come. No, when you come, הוא קנה אותה בעצמה, קנה אותה לגבי מה? According to Rav, הוא קנה אותה לכל דבר, to everything, לאשתו לכל דבר. According to Shemuel, no, only that which is written in the Torah. What's written in the Torah? No, no. פרשה של ייבום, לא פרשה של משפטים. אתה במשפטים, שאר כסות ועונה.
גם בדרכה, גם לא בדרכה.
No.
מה אתה רוצה?
ירושה and זיקה וייבום. Those are the only two things which are written in the parasha, which means according to Shemuel, when do you say you acquire? You acquire her, then now to do with Yerusha, because it's written by the parashat Yibum, Yerusha, that he's going to be Yoresh Ota, by the Yerusha, and then now she doesn't have a Zika anymore. She's married to the Yavam, she doesn't need Chalitza. Those are the only two things according to Shitat Shemuel. According to Rav, it's Lechol Davar. According to Shemuel, no. Midi Utama Ela Lerav. So says the Gemara, what? This is good only according to Rav. Hamar Rav. Rav says Kanal Akol. He acquires her for everything. So it says the Gemara, Maskin, what he's dealing with the Kagon, Tavaba Ma'amar. He did Ma'amar. What is Ma'amar? Kesef Eshtar. Remember, it's right. It's only going to be, it's like the Kiddushin, right, that he did with this Yevama, Bet Shammai, and it's going to Shita Bet Shammai. The Amri was going to Shita Bet Shammai. Ma'amar Kone Kinyan Gamut. Ma'amar is going to acquire everything. Okay? Ihachi. So ask the Gemara, if so, Hainu Arusa. So then that's Arusa then. Because if you're going to tell me now that Yevama is going to be considered the Nisuin, so for also the same thing. So then that's also Arusa. According to reasoning, Nisua Knusa, it's not the same thing, Nisua and Knusa. Ela Nisua Dida Knusa de Chavre. We're talking about Nisua, is talking about for him, because of him Nisuin. And Knusa is talking about the brother. She was married to the brother. We're talking about his Arusa, and it's the friends, being the brothers, right? Shomenet Yavam. So says the Gemara, Rav Papa comes and he says, Haitana, who this Tana is actually the Tanya is like, we're going like a Braita. The Braita says, En mekanin la Arusa lashkota kishi Arusa, ava mekanin ota lashkota kishi nesua. Says, you know something incredible? To do with, we just said that there's no such thing as the waters of the Sotah for an Arusa. But says the Gemara, the Braita says you could still do kinui for an Arusa, and then we're going to come and give her to drink when she's in a Suah. Meaning, I don't know why in the world he would get married to her, other than the fact that he just doesn't want to get divorced, right? Because remember, he's already Arusa. Arusa is that he's already married to her. And what happens is, he's allowed to do kinui now. So he does kinui. He comes and he says, listen, he does kinui, right? He doesn't want her to be with this man. Why? He suspects that there's monkey business going around. You understand? So he comes and he says, so because of that, he's allowed to do the kinui now when she's in Arusa, and then he'll give her to drink later on. Nachman bar Yitzchak comes and he says, Al Yedei Gilgul. What is Al Yedei Gilgul? Gilgul is Gilgul Shavua, which means, right, he's allowed to be megalgel on a Shavua, even though in that time there was no kinui and there was no chashash, which means a Gilgul Shavua is, for example, let's say right now, right, there's something between Chas Shalom, me and Mordechai. So what happens is that I'm allowed to come and I can make him swear. What if I can't make him swear? So okay, so I can't make him swear, but I want him to swear, right? Especially in the olden days, people actually meant their words, so they would not swear. Some people, just not to make the shavua, they would pay, even though they were 100% patur, because they never wanted to make a shavua, even if it was true. They didn't want people mamash. Once upon a time, right? It was bam, yeah, fine. What happens is that all of a sudden I want to make him do a shavua, and I can't. So what do? I do something which is called Gilgul Shavua. Gilgul Shavua means that I make him do a Shavua for something else that I could obligate him. Now, once he already has to do Shavua for something else, and he megalgel it now that he's also doing on this. That's called Gilgul Shavua. So he says the same thing over here. He comes and he says over here, he's Rashai legalgel shetishava gam al hatkufa she meureset, even though, right, there was nothing on the Irusin. Meaning during the time of the Irusin, he can't really do anything because there's no sotah. But he could do Gilgul Shavua. So therefore he's going to come and he's going to do it during the Nisuin, and then he's going to give me Galgelet that it also goes on the Irusin. And therefore she has to swear that also during the Irusin, she was 100% faithful, right? And she didn't do any illicit relations. Okay? Fine. Shalach Rav Chanina Mishmed Rav Yochanan. Rav Chanina sends the name of Yochanan. Haoseh ma'amar b'yevamto v'yesh lo ach. Right? Afilu kohen v'i kohenet v'salam min truma. If somebody does a ma'amar with his yivamah and he has another brother, b'chayim, so even if he's a kohen and she's a bat kohen, v'salam min truma, so she's going to become psula from the truma until he finishes the yibum. Why? Because since she's also zakuka min Torah to the second brother, and she's a surah to the second brother because of the ma'amar, so she's not allowed to eat truma anymore. So it means he has to finish it up. So that means, he did the ma'amar, he has to finish, he has to do the yibum. Right? But until then, psula from the truma. So says the Gemara, who does it go according to? If you're going to tell me it's going to Rabbi Meir, what did Rabbi say this? That's only to do with the woman that she's waiting to get somebody that's psula to him, midoraita. Midrabanan, but midrabanan, did you already say that? Because remember, ma'amar is only derabanan. Yibum is doraita. Ma'amar is derabanan. Ella barada, says the Gemara, according to Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon. Hashta mishtamen el bia psula midoraita achla midrabanan mibai. If right now, according to Shitat Rabbi Lazar, Rabbi Shimon, that they say that if the woman is waiting for a bia psula, she's going to be prohibited to eat. So mishtamesh el bia psula midoraita achla, she could eat. So midrabanan is even a question. If she's already waiting to become married to somebody that's pasul for midoraita, she could still eat truma. Kalva chomer ben beno shel kalva chomer. If it's going to be drabanan, for sure she could eat. Rather, when Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael to Babel, Amari said, "Asaba ma'amami v'mutod divrei kol achla." He does ma'amar according to everybody could eat. She could eat, sorry. Right? Yesh lo halal. If he has a brother that's a halal, the divrei kol ena ochelet, she cannot eat. Lo nechleku lenatan la get. What happens if he gave her a get? Rabbi Yochanan says she could eat, and the Shaki says she cannot eat. Remember, get is for the ma'amar, but it's not for the yibum, so she still has to do halitza. Right? Remember that. Okay, very important. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan comes and he says, ochelet, she could eat. Why? Even according to Rabbi Meir, the amar ena ochelet, hanemin le mishamesh lebi absolute doraita. But here it's only the Rabbanan. Why? Because she received the get, and a get is only the Rabbanan. Because we didn't want to say that a get doesn't help at all, because if not, then people are going to say get doesn't help. So we want to say the Rabbanan it helps, right? But it's only the Rabbanan. But midoraita she needs chalitza. So for achla, the Shaki Shaman, the Shaki says ena ochelet, she's not going to eat. Even according to afilu Rabbi Lazar v'Shimon damni ochelet animila di yesh lo laachil b'makom acher, because he could give somebody else to eat be'eter. Aval hacha, but over here, he can't give to eat anywhere else better. So no, he can't. If you're going to tell me now, in the case of the get, he could give her to eat truma, which means he could bring her back. 1 second. We already said, so therefore now she's completely separated. And then she's going back to her father's house. So for now that she's eating from her father's house. She's not eating from his guy because she already did a get. Because she was a bat kohen. Avalha agida bay, but here she's still kshura to him. Why is she still kshura to him? Because at the end of the day, the get does not take away the zikah, right? What takes away zikah? Chalisa. What takes away ma'amar? Get. But it's not this. So says the Gemara, you're right. That's why he says since she's still a gida gabay, she's still attached to him. That's why she says she cannot eat still from the house of the father, and therefore we cannot come and give her to eat, right? Because she was given this get. Says the 2 dots, or 3 lines from the bottom. If she was widowed or divorced, right? So therefore, it says over here they're going to be. It says Rabbi Nisuim psulot from Minusin is going to be kshirot. By Rabbi Chia bar Yosef Mishmuel asked Rabbi Chia bar Yosef Mishmuel, Kohen Gadol shekidesh et ketana ubagra tachtav. What happens if a Kohen Gadol gets married to a ketana or a ne'ara? Right? Because that's who he should get married to. And then bagra tachtav, she became a bogeret underneath him, which means that during the time of the Erusin, she became a bogeret. Okay? Mahu, what's halacha? Batar nisuin azlinan or batar erusin azlinan? Do we go after in nisuin or erusin? Remember by Kohen Gadol, it's written v'hu isha b'ftulei yikach. He has to get married to a betula. So therefore, since he has to get married to a betula, right? So therefore, we want to make sure that she's 100% a betula. So the question is, even when he got married to her when she was a ketana or a nara, and all of a sudden now she becomes a bogeret. So do we go after the time of Nisuin or Erusin? Okay, so the Gemara Nuntet Amud Aleph says Elmaleh, he says in Tirituha, right? 59a. Says we already learned it. It's written. If it's going to be from the Nisuin, so then it's going to be Psula Lekuna. It's going to be from the Rusin. Kshera Lekuna. So Elmaleh comes and he tells him, I'm not talking about making her a halala, because when he got married to her and she was prohibited to him, he made her into a halala. The biyah is what makes her into a halala. Right? When is the question? When it says you have to take a betula, what is halacha? It says yikach. Is it kicha? Kicha is kiddushin or nisuin? That's the question. So Elmaleh, he says, we also learned it. Iras et almana v'nitmana kohen gadol. What happens if he went and he got married? He did irusin to an almana. Now he was a regular kohen. Can a regular kohen get married to an almana? Yes. Regular kohen. Kohen idiot. Kohen idiot, yes. Can get married to an almana. Can get married to a grusha, chalutza? No. Kohen idiot. Kohen idiot. One more time. Kohen idiot could get married to an almana. Cannot get married to grusha v'chalutza. Yeah. Now, what happens? He got married to her, married Erusin. He did Erusin to an almana. And all of a sudden, it's mana Kohen Gadol. He becomes Kohen Gadol. That means he was in the middle of the process. He did Erusin, but he didn't do Nesuin. And now he's a Kohen Gadol. Says the Gemara, Yichnos, he's allowed to get married to her. He's allowed to get married to her, to the almana, to continue. Yeah, he's allowed to continue. So this is a proof. Exactly. So says the Gemara, Shanei Hatam, it's different over there. The fee, ki kach leisha. When it says isha, right, it's extra. So therefore, it's even almanat to isha, which means in this case, since it started beheter, you tell him to finish beheter. You tell him now it's a yisur, fine, but you tell him to finish. He started beheter, right? Achanami ktiv isha. Here also it's written isha. So also by here, v'uvtila isha, right? So he says, v'isha v'uvtila yikach. So he says, achat v'lo shleim. No, when it says there, isha, he could only take one and not two. So it says the Gemara, what does that mean, one and not two? So it says here, since isha is lashon yachid, so it comes out that he could only get married to one. Okay? So he comes and he says, umaraita, why do you say now to add in an almana, right? Kashalo lifne minuyav, another betula, that she becomes a bogeret. So answers the Gemara, hayishtane gufa v'lo ishtane gufa. The almana doesn't change her body. She was an almana now, right? All of a sudden now he becomes Kohen Gadol. Her body changes, nothing changes. But when she was a ketana or nada, and now she becomes a bogeret, there's physical changes in her body. You have, what it's called the right? You have whether it's going to becomes whether it's going to puberty or the body is changing. She starts getting the menstrual cycle, other things as well. Her body changes. So because there's a change in the body, that's why we prefer to come and to add in the woman of the almana, right, from that pasuk, and to exclude the woman which is a minor or a nada, and then she changed. Because at the time, if you're going to tell me it's the same svara, he started beheter, and now in the meantime she became a bogeret. So to here, he started beheter, he got married to her when she was an almana, and now he became Kohen Gadol, and now he's a sur in the almana. Same thing. We come and we say that no, I prefer to add in the case of the almana, and I exclude the case of the bogeret, because this one the woman is changing her body, and this one the woman is not changing her body. And we finish until the Mishnah.